Hey movers and shakers, oh my God, this is one of my best videos yet. It is a little long, so I want you to stick through it all the way. But we're gonna go over the 4 conditions of the perfect sales pitch so that you can make more money, book more jobs, and live the lifestyle that you've always wanted. But before we do that, we got a message from our sponsor. I like you, I love you. Go and do something great today. Hey guys, just got done doing a video, and as you can see, I'm in my studio, and I really wanted to talk to you about you joining the 7-Figure Moving Academy membership group. Now, this membership group is small, and has its own unique place that is set up where we can discuss business, and we can have a great time, just you and me and some of your fellow members here. Now, this is a paid group. I do have a free Facebook group, which you're more than welcome to go and check. There is a description, a link in the description of almost every single video I do on YouTube, and you're more than welcome to join that and get some good information. But if you want the stuff that I don't talk about on that Facebook group, and if you want the good stuff that's going to actually set you up to the next level, then you want to join the 7-Figure Moving Academy membership group. It is only $49 a month, but it's going to give you a lot of great information. And I'm going to you're going to have access to documents and sales patterns and information, as well as different free courses just specifically for you members, your friends, that is not available to the public at all. And there are some paid stuff that you will have to pay even if you're a member, but there's some really good stuff that I do not do. Plus, I do offer free you can get a hold of me free when you're on that Facebook Membership Academy membership group. You'll have free access to a DM, so you can DM me and email me and talk to me personally, as well as all sorts of great advice from a bunch of other members that are in the group. Plus, we are looking for subgroup people. So if you want to run a subgroup for your area, you have the access to do that. So you can actually create your own membership or your own subgroup to help you out to make more leads, more sales, etc. So it's a really good group. I really ask that you take a look at it. There is no free trial time, so it's you either in or you're out. And if you want to invest in yourself, then this is your chance to invest in yourself and actually make more money. Because quite honestly, if you're not willing to invest in yourself, willing to invest in your business, then you're really not a business owner. And I really suggest you just go to the free group until you're up to the point where you actually get the mindset, hey, let's actually take this to the next level. And that's the guys I'm really wanting into the membership group. So if that's you, come to the 7-Figure Moving Academy membership. You should be seeing a link down here at the bottom or somewhere around in this video. And I hope to see you in that group. Hey movers and shakers, welcome back to another exciting episode of the 7-Figure Moving Academy. So glad to have you here. Today I really want to stress and communicate the 4 pillars of the perfect sales pitch, right? Now, I like to be very fluid. I like to be organic when I give out my sales pitch. I don't like to have a pattern. I don't like to have anything written down, but there are uses for a pattern and there are uses for having some things that are rote, like actually knowing and having practiced certain objection overcomers and so on and so forth like that, if you get my point. So the first question I've got to ask you, is there such thing as the perfect pitch? And the answer to that is no. There's no such thing as the perfect pitch, because every time you pitch your service, every time you go to sell your services, it's going to be slightly altered to fit that particular customer. Now, there's going to be common themes with particular customers and particular situations, but there's going to be various nuances and differentiations between each and every customer. So to have a pattern specifically for a perfect pitch, I'm going to read this and I'm going to read it rotely, is not something that is going to be workable for everybody. That's why I like to be very organic. I like to be very loose, and I like to be ready and have certain things practiced and certain things ready in my arsenal to answer the questions and help really establish a rapport with my customers. So there are 4 pillars to creating rapport that gives you the anatomy of the perfect sales pitch, so that to make surefire sales. However, there's going to be times when this fails, and when this fails, then that is just not going to be a good customer for you. One thing that I recommend that you start doing, if you're not already doing it, you should be recording all your sales phone calls. So every time someone comes on, calls you up or comes online, or you call them or whatever, start recording those calls. What I want you to do when you start recording those calls is actually listen to them many, many, many times. Consider it like on the equivalent of a professional sports player who plays football, basketball, baseball, etc., where they watch gameplay over and over and over and over and over of the team that they're going to play. They want to watch the gameplay. They want to see how somebody reacts and how somebody's going to move when certain pressures are put onto that person, that sales resistance, if you will, from that other opposing team. And that's kind of what I want you to do. I want you to use these phone calls as game videos. So I want you to see where the resistance comes from the opposing team, which is your shipper or your customer, who's going to give you sales resistance, right? I want you to be able to go over that and see how you handled the customer in a particular situation and how you didn't handle the customer in a situation. So when you figure this out, you go, okay, when a customer does this, this tends to be very workable if I say this or do this, right? And when a customer gives me this sales resistance, this is where it failed. So how can I improve it? How can I alter it? Or how can I just get rid of it and use something else that's going to make it in the plus and positive column, right? By doing that, also you need to record your in-person, the face-to-face kind of interactions, as long as the customer knows that you're doing it. Say, hey, look, do you mind if I record this for my posterity so that I can go back if I do anything wrong and I can use this to train myself and others. And then once you have that down, then you can start using these phone calls and you can start recording from these recordings. You can start using these recordings as a methodology and a process and a system that you can use to train your salespeople when you start to train salespeople. You can go, see, when this happens, this is what I do. You can come up with some if-then scenarios, which you can then use in your sales process. Because most of us are not born salespeople. I know that I wasn't, and I know most of you are. Now, there's going to be a few of you, don't get me wrong, there's a few of you that could just sell ice to an Eskimo during a blizzard. And if that's you, awesome. You don't maybe you could just disregard what I'm saying right now. But if that's not you, if you're like me, then this is a way for you to improve your sales process, your sales system, so that you can not only get better and close more sales, but then you can also train your salespeople so that they close more sales. So let's get into these 4 pillars of the perfect sales pitch so that you can book more sales and more high-paying sales. Shall we do it? Because that's what this is all about, right? To make more sales, to be better, to boom, to expand, to live the lifestyle we're here for. So let's get into it, right? The first pillar of the sales anatomy, the first pillar of the perfect sales pitch is your condition. Now, the condition is just the state of the situation that your customer is. This is where we're going to establish what's needed and wanted. So one of the things is, this is also a place where we're going to establish our pattern, right? This is where you're going to use a pattern, because we want to ask certain questions that will bring out the information that we need to determine what the customer wants, and therefore so we can give the perfect quote at the end of this process. So what we want to do, this is where we want to establish a pattern. For instance, when a person would call me, I would go, hey, what's your name? What's your phone number? How did you hear about us? Are you moving locally? Are you moving long distance? Are you moving from a storage unit? How many bedrooms you have? Do you have anything heavy that would require 3 or more people? Are you requiring multiple stops, etc.? And by doing this, you could create a pattern that you use specifically that will then okay, this guy, we know that it's a 3-bedroom house. They're moving 50 miles. It's going to be about 10,000 pounds. They've got heavy this and heavy that. Okay, good. So now we know what they need and what they want, right? So this is what part of the condition pillar. So we're going to establish our pattern. The next thing, with using that pattern, we're going to establish we're going to get an idea of what they need and what they want, right? Because they're going to need their hot tub moved. They're going to want their gun safe. They're going to want their piano. They want this, that. Do they need packing? Do they not want packing? Do they want to quote with packing or without packing? And then basically we're just getting into the nuts and bolts of this. This is what we're going to determine. We're just determining what is actually needed and what is actually wanted from the customer. And the next thing we want to do with the condition step is by finding out what's needed and wanted, this is very crucial because if you don't determine exactly what's needed and wanted, later on down the road, various things can happen. For instance, in the moving industry, if you don't ask the right questions to get the right answers and you do a phone quote, and you're going to miss. For instance, you don't ask if there's something heavy, right, in the house that requires 3 or more people, like let's say a piano, and you show up to the house and there's a piano and you only brought 2 people and you didn't bring any equipment to move that piano board. Now you've just created a situation where the customer is going to be upset with you. Do you get it? So this step is vital. It's crucial, right? Not only that, this step is going to help you determine, like I just mentioned, how many crew you're going to need to bring to the event, and how many trucks, or what's the equipment you're going to need, how the time it's going to take, the intensity it's going to take, how long it's going to take, so on and so forth. Because if you don't have that information and you come down to the final pillar, which is price, and we're going to get into that, then you are not going to give a real good quote, and you're going to miss the boat, and you're going to create a lot of problems, and you're going to end up with bad reviews. So condition is the number 1 pillar that you must master. And this is the only point in your sales process that I recommend you having a pattern. Everything else should be a flowing, natural, organic method. Right? Next thing we're going to do is establish the timeline. The next pillar is the timeline of the situation of the event or the thing you're doing. So if you're in a moving business, right, you're going to go, when do you need to move? How fast do you need to move? Are you in a house? Is it the end of the month? Is their lease coming up? Are they setting this move up to be moved out the day they got to be out? For instance, so if something happens like weather and they're saying, okay, I want to move on the 31st, right? They're in an apartment, as an example, they're in an apartment. Are they moving out on the 31st or 30th or whatever the last day of the month is, and they got to be out that day? Well, that could offer a particular problem. If you're in a bad climate area, maybe it's blizzarding out that day and it's just totally unsafe to be even out on the roads that day. That's something that you can use later on. Say, hey, maybe moving out on the last day of the month is not the wisest thing. Let's move it a couple days ahead, right? So determining their timeline of the particular event or situation that they're trying to solve. That way you could come up with solutions that will actually be better for them or find out. And this also, when you're doing it, this helps determine a specific pain point. Maybe there's a reason why they can only move on the 31st. Find out what that reason is. Ask into it. So, and you want to use an open-ended question. So why is that day important for us to move? Is there any other day that we can move that would be just as beneficial? Or whatever your situation, or if it's a chiropractor or something, maybe they need to move right now or today, like immediately. If you're a moving business, some movers just did not show up for the job for whatever reason, or maybe they decided it's a lower tier job and they want to go to the high paying job. This is something that we need to do because it will help us determine a pain point. And pain points, as you'll later on see, is something very vital. That's a quiver. That's an arrow in our quiver. Okay, that's something that we're going to use to sell our services, right? So the next thing that the timeline does, it also helps establish the number of crew and the number of trucks. So if they need to move like right now, like tomorrow or the next day after, and they got to get out like within a certain time period, awesome. So that we know that we need to bring an army, or we could get away with just bringing 2 or 3 people, or, we don't need to really put this on a priority situation, right? Because somebody needs to move like next day, right? We can then go, okay, great. We need to get this person out. To solve this person's problem, we need to bring an army. Instead of our normal crew of 2 or 3 people, we need to bring 2 or 3 more crews, or we need to bring a couple of trucks so that we know that we can get the job done. And this is going to affect how much you're going to charge that particular customer, right? So this is something, by establishing the timeline, we can figure out not only what they need, but their particular pay points. Also, timeline helps us determine how fast we could do something, because speed determines how much money you make. The faster you can get something done, the faster you could do something, the more money you're going to make, the more profit margin, and the most amount of gross. Actually, if you look up the derivation of a word, speed, and a derivation is the origins of the word. If you actually look up the derivation of the word speed, it comes from the word fortune. That is why people back in the days, in the old days, like Shakespeare said, used to say, "Godspeed, my fellow man," or whatever, right? They would be saying, "God's fortune be with you." So Godspeed, right? That's where that comes from, right? So by also determining their timeline, we could figure out how fast we could do it. And we could then determine prices and so on and so forth. It also gives us pain points, right? Now, what we're going to get into now, the third pillar, which is very, very vital, is the motivation. What is their motivation? And if, quite honestly, by finding condition and timeline, we will have established much of the motivation of our customers, but it's always good to get into the motivation in of itself, right? So motivation is the place where we're really going to determine what the pain points are so that we can use it to reinforce our sales pitch, right? Notice I didn't say patter, our sales pitch, right? So we want to determine motivation, and we want to determine what the pain points are, right? Like, for instance, maybe you've got to move, and the pain point is and this is a real example from my experience. I have an old guy who's in a house here in town, and they needed to get him out because he's getting really old. He's not necessarily hospice, but he needs to have people around him and monitoring him and checking up on him. So they need to move him into a home, right? And a retirement home where there's going to be people around him to help get an exercise, make sure he's fed, he's clean and all that good stuff. So that is a motivation. It's a pain point. They want to make sure that their parent is being taken care of, or their elderly friend or whatever, their friends are being taken care of. This is a motivational point. It's a pain point, right? Because they can't necessarily do it so do it. So they needed a mover to move this person out to go into that because they're needed somebody to help with that, right? Also, what we're going to do to get this motivation is we're going to use open-ended questions to determine their motivation. We're going to ask questions like, in a perfect world, what is it that you're looking for in a mover? What is it that you're hoping to achieve? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish? And then you want to keep doing it. Oh, you get an answer to that. You're going to acknowledge that question. You're going to say, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you are hoping to accomplish? And you're going to use this for the next thing is to drill down as far as you can to get down to the most basic pain points, the most basic motivation that this customer wants. And you're going to just keep doing it. And you're going to keep doing it until can't give you an answer or they get upset, right? Once you get to that point, then you kind of back off from those questions, right? And you're going to have to this is where training comes in, where you're going to see the subtle facial expressions and the tenor of their voice and their tonality of their voice, as well as their body postures and so on. And the more you practice that, you're gonna find where that line is and where you need to stop those questions. But by drilling down, you can find out what the biggest pain point is that the customer has. Next thing we're going to do is using those pain points, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, and we're going to drill it down because they might have a plethora. They might just have this massive amount of pain points, and it comes down to just like 2 or 3 categories, right? We're going to use those pain points. We're going to use those to overcome objections. For instance, they give you a spouse, a wife gives an objection. Well, thank you very much for your quote. I need to speak with my husband about this. And then you could say, listen, Susie, I get what you're saying. This is important for you, right? To get to speak with your husband. But I mean, obviously you guys are moving, so you knew, and you guys made an agreement that you were going to make the calls, right? Yeah. So if you came up with something, you could say, hey, look, I really feel good about this company. So you have that determination, right? So is there something that have I not addressed what you really want to make this deal go, or something of that order, right? You're going to come up with things. Remember, we talked about using the recording the sales pitch. This is why you would record it, because you're going to find out what objections work, which objections don't work, and you're going to write those down, and you're going to write if-then situations. So if you come into this situation again, you're going to find out what works, what it didn't work. But anyway, we're going to use what we determined as pain points. We're going to use those as to reinforce our sales pitch to make the sale. Does this make sense? I hope it does. If not, leave me a comment down in the comment section. I really like to hear a thing. But that's what motivation is. So realize how to do that, right? Now, finally, well, first, before we go on to the last one, these first 2 will help you determine what we call rapport, right? And rapport is very important to establish with your customer, because by having a good rapport, you will be able to handle pretty much everything else. By establishing a good rapport, you're going to be able to get to the motivation much easier, right? So we really have to be really determined to establish a positive rapport with our customers. So these 2 are vital. That's why they're at the top. That's why condition and timeline are at the top of the 4 pillars, because by establishing this rapport, we can then use that rapport along with the pain points, and we can then determine their motivation. They become a little bit tenderized for us to really dig down into the motivation. Finally, by using that rapport, by using the pain points, we're going to be able to give our price. And when I say the price is, okay, we're going to give our quote. And this is where the sales process comes, right? This is where you want to get really creative. This is where you want to start reading books by Zig Ziglar and Grant Cardone and The Wolf of Wall Street and all these sales gurus, so that you can get a good idea of how to use the sales process when we come down to price. Because let's get it, when it comes down to most of the objections, it comes down to price, right? So by using our price, by determining the price, we can give them our quote and our price for our particular service. But this is where we're going to start overcoming objections. So on the fourth pillar is our price point. We give our quote. This is what we can do for you. This is how we can do it. This is where we're going to give all of the logistics, right? Because people buy on emotion and justify with logic. That's how they purchase something or sell something if they're selling something they want to make money with, right? They buy or sell based on emotion, and they really follow it up with, and they justify it with logic. So we want, when we're establishing our price, we're going to give them all the logical reasons why they're going to do it. And then we're going to shift into the emotional responses and then that's why we're going to do it. Once we get giving them the price, we're going to start overcoming their objections. We're going to start establishing our sales pitch by giving the emotional reasons for your perfect sales pitch. For instance, you want to give visual cues, especially if you're person to person. One thing you can do is you can really go, this is your competition, this is my competition, and this is what we do. Notice how I put it down here. We're going to do that because we want to come up to here by saying we're above. This is a subliminal message to the customer that our competition is here and we're up here, and by using us, we're going to be able to fulfill their needs and wants that we determined up here, as well as we're going to use the pain points to determine that, to overcome their objections. We're going to use our pain points to really reinforce the objections and use it. And then we're going to use this is their objection, here's our solution, right? We're going to use their pain to get them up to pleasure, right? That's the emotional response. And finally, we're going to book them, and we're going to book them or close that sale by using this process. So this really determines your anatomy of the perfect sales pitch. Hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully this really gives you a good idea of how to make more sales, bigger sales, book more jobs, get more crew in, so on and so forth. So use these 4 pillars: condition, timeline, motivation, and price, to book more sales, to make more sales, get higher gross income and more profit margin. Guys, I like you. I love you. I really hope you got something out of it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you leave me a comment below. And if you have not yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button so you can get more content like this. Make sure you ring my ding-a-ling right next to it. It's the little bell icon. Guys, thank you. Have a great day.